Okay, Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Before we officially start analyzing the translation itself, I think it's important that we set the context properly. Our source text comes from the Petronas Integrated Report that was published in 2022 under the section Significant Accounting Policies. This section is not written for casual reading but for stakeholders such as auditors, regulators, analysts, and investors. And because of that, the language in the source that is intentionally dense, formal, and highly technical. When we translated it into Malay, our main responsibility was not to make it easy, but to make it accurate, consistent, and professionally acceptable within the Malaysian financial reporting context. I will be moderating the discussion, but I want this to be interactive. Please feel free to interrupt, clarify, or even disagree because disagreement actually shows critical thinking. To begin, I'd like each of you to explain how you interpreted the function of this text because function directly affects translation strategy.
So for function and purpose of text, from my understanding, the primary function of this text is explanatory and regulatory. It explains how Petronas applies accounting standards, particularly in relation to business combination and consideration. This means the text is not just persuasive, narrative, or instructional in the usual sense. Because the function is explanatory within a regulatory framework. The translation cannot be liberties with wording. Even if a sentence feels awkward in Malay, it may still be necessary to retain it to preserve legal and financial meaning. This awareness influenced by how cautious I was during translation.
Yes, I agree with Ellie, and I would like to add that the tax also functions as a form of accountability. Petronas is essentially declaring how it treats financial information, which has legal and ethical implications. So, from a linguistic point of view, this means that ambiguity must be minimized. While creative texts allow interpretive freedom, this kind of document requires linguistic discipline. That understanding made me more conservative when suggesting changes to sentence structure or wording.
Okay, as for me, the function of text strongly influence register. So this is a high stakes of documents, so any hint of informality could undermine credibility. Even if a phrase sounds stiff in Malay, stiffness can actually signal authority in institutional text. That's why I paid close attention to whether our translation sounds like Petronas. If it sounded like a student essay or a news article, then something was wrong.
And from a terminology perspective, the function of the text requires strict adherence to standardized accounting language. These terms are not stylistic choices, they are convention recognized by the profession. Therefore, the translation function demands terminology consistency across documents, years, and even languages. This is why research was not optional but essential.
Okay, so what everyone has mentioned just now actually points to one key idea, which is general awareness. This is not just an English to Malay task, it is a financial report to financial report task. So, general awareness means we accept that the repetition is normal throughout the text, long sentences are expected, passive voice is preferred, and last but not least, emotional neutrality is required. So before we are translating, we subconsciously accepted these conventions. So do you guys think our final Malay text conforms to the same generation as the English source?
Yes, I do, Kiki. When I read the final version, it feels like something I would expect to see in an actual annual report. The tone is impersonal, authoritative, and procedural. So this shows that we didn't just translate a language, we translated in institutional voice. That's an important distinction of a professional translation.
Yes, I completely agree with Shahira, and I think that this is where many student translations fail because students often focus on sentence level correctness but forget genre level expectations. So, our discussions help us to move beyond grammar and into discourse level thinking, which is essential for advanced translation courses like what we are doing right now, ELS254.
Yeah, I also noticed that the Malay text mirrors the rhythm of financial reporting. It doesn't try to sound nice, but it sounds systematic. That's good thing in this context.
Yeah, and general expectation also justify why some English terms were borrowed or only partially translated. This preserves continuity across documents.
Thank you, everyone. And at a macro level, when we compare the source stats and the target tag, we can see that the information hierarchy remains the same. Headings, subheadings, and paragraph sequencing are preserved. This was intentional. Rearranging content might improve readability, but it could disrupt cross referencing with other reports or studies. So, do you guys think maintaining structure was the right decision?
Yes, because financial documents often rely on structural consistency. Users may compare different years or documents side by side. Changing structure could confuse readers.
I agree with Ellie, and also maintaining structure shows respect for the original author's logic. So translation doesn't mean rewriting the document.
I also agree with Ali and Mia. So, from a stylistic perspective, keeping structure reinforces professionalism and readability.
And also, structurally consistent documents are easier to audit and verify.
Okay, so to wrap up the first part of our discussion, we have established the importance of function, genre, and macro structure in guiding our translation decisions. These foundational considerations shape everything else, from sentence structure to terminology choice. So, in the next part, we will move much deeper into sentence level analysis, focusing on long sentences, passive constructions, and syntactic restructure. Now that we have discussed the function, genre, and overall structure of the text, I think it makes sense for us to zoom in and look at the sentence level. This is where most of our actual translation struggles happen. The English source text contains multiple long sentences with embedded clauses, passive constructions, and technical phrases that carry very specific meanings. Translating these sentences into Malay requires us to make careful decisions about whether to retain structure, restructure syntax, or simplify certain elements. So I like us to start by discussing our general approach. When do we encounter a very long sentence? Instinct. Did we want to split it, keep it, or partially restructure it? Okay.
Alright, my instinct at the beginning was to split long sentences because, as a Malay reader, long sentences can feel overwhelming. However, as I progressed with the translation, I realized that splitting sentences in financial text is risky. Many of these long sentences are long for a reason. They establish a cause and effect relationship or describe a sequence of accounting treatments. So, breaking them into shorter sentences could unintentionally change emphasis or disconnect ideas that are meant to be together. They are meant to be to read together. So instead of splitting, I focus on adjusting word order and ensuring the sentence still flows logically in Malay.
So from a linguistic perspective, I agree with Elite's conclusion. While readability is important, financial texts prioritize logical completeness over ease of reading. So when analyzing the English sentences, I noticed that each clauses serves a function. So removing or separating clauses might simplify reading, but it also could reduce precision. So therefore, my suggestion focus on controlling the restructuring, such as moving adverbial phrases or simplifying noun phrases rather than sentence division.
I will also add that long sentences that are actually a norm in formal Malay writing, especially in legal and financial documents. While students are often taught to avoid long sentences, professional genres operate differently. So instead of seeing length as a problem, I saw it as a genre feature. The challenge was not length itself, but ensuring grammatical clarity and coherence within that length.
So, from the terminology side, keeping sentences intact help maintain conceptual integrity. Accounting concepts often span multiple clauses, and separating them could lead to misinterpretation. For example, clauses that describe measurement, timing, and recognition are interdependent. Keeping them within one sentence preserves their technical relationship.
Okay, let's examine this sentence from the source text. Ellie, can you zoom in where the sentence start with business combinations are accounted for? Right. So the sentence was business combinations are accounted for using the acquisition. The acquisition is the date on which refer to the group. In Malay, we say pergabungan perniagaan kan menggunakan kaedah pemerolehan bermula dari tarikh pemerolehan iaitu tarikh kawalan dipindahkan kepada kumpulan. So this sentence is relative long, right? Why did we decide not to split it?
So, in my opinion, this sentence defines both the method and the timing of accounting treatment. So, the relative clause, which is the date, is essential because it clarifies what acquisition date means. So, if we separated it into two sentences, the readers might miss that clarification or read it as additional information rather than a definition. So, keeping it in one sentence ensures conceptual unity.
Yeah, I also felt that splitting it would weaken the definition. In Malay, using iaitu works well to introduce clarification within the same sentence. So it allows us to preserve the explanatory function of the relative clause.
From a stylistic perspective, this structure sounds very natural from informal Malay. The use of iaitu signals explanation without breaking flow. It also maintains an authoritative tone.
Terminal, Terminologically, keeping tarikh pemerolehan and its explanation together avoid ambiguity. It ensures that readers understand exactly which date is referred to.
Okay, thank you. Let's take a look at another challenging sentence, which is the identifiable asset. Ellie, can you find it in the source text?
Sorry?
Can you find another challenging sentence in the source text? It starts with the identifiable asset. So the
Okay.
sentence is the identifiable assets acquired and liabilities assumed are measured at their fair values at the acquisition date. This sentence looks full in English. Terminology makes it dense. So how do we approach this?
Although the sentence is short, the challenge lies in the noun phrases. Identifiable assets acquired and liabilities assumed are very specific accounting concepts. So in Malay, we had to be very careful not to oversimplify these phrases. So that's why we use assets yang boleh dikenal pasti, yang diperoleh, dan and liability yang boleh diambil alih. Even though it sounds long, it accurately reflects the technical meaning.
Yes, this is a good example of how Malay often expand noun phrases to maintain precision. So shortening these phrases might make the sentence easier to read, but it would also reduce the clarity.
Also, the passive structure are measured fits well with Malay passive constructions. It maintains neutrality and removes focus from the actor, which suits financial reporting.
So each term here has recognized equivalents in accounting Malay. So consistency was more important than brevity.
Okay. Now let's talk about the most complex sentence in the text. The paragraph on non-controlling interest and stage acquisition. This is where we spend the most time doing collaboration. So why was this paragraph particularly difficult?
This paragraph is challenging because it combines several accounting actions into one sentence: remeasurement, recognition of gains or losses, and treatment of ownership increases. When translating, I had to constantly refer back to the English to ensure that I wasn't missing out which action applied to which condition. The risk of misinterpretation was high when translating this.
Well, from a syntactic perspective, the sentence contains multiple embedded clauses. So each clause modifies a different part of the sentence. So restructuring required careful attention to logical flow. And I remember suggesting slight adjustment in word order to ensure that readers could follow the sequence of actions more easily.
I agree with Mia's suggestion. This paragraph also requires us to maintain a very formal tone throughout. Using casual connectors or simplifying too much would undermine the seriousness of the content.
Terminology consistency was critical here. Terms like kepentingan bukan kawalan, nilai saksama, and untung atau rugi had to be used consistently and correctly. Any variation could confuse the reader.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. So, after having that discussion, this will bring us to an important question. Should readability ever override accuracy in this type of text?
Well, in my opinion, accuracy should always come first, because readability is important, but not at the expense of precision. Financial readers are trained to process complex sentences.
Yeah, I agree. While we should avoid unnecessary complexity, we should not simplify core concept as well. Our role is to transfer meaning, not to reinterpret the text.
Readability in financial text is achieved through clarity, not simplicity. Clear relationship between clauses matter more than sentence length.
From a professional standpoint, auditors and analysts expect complexity over simplified language might even reduce trust.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So, to summarize the second part of our discussion, our approach to sentence structure was guided by general expectations, accuracy, and conceptual integrity. Rather than splitting or simplifying sentences, we focus on control restructuring. Clear syntax. So, in the next part, we will move into terminology analysis and debates, where disagreements were more frequent and research play a central role. So, having as a main sentence structure and readability, the next major challenge was the terminology. Accounting texts rely heavily on precise terms, and each term has a specific legal or financial. So during translation, where there wasn't equivalent or where multiple options existed, so we had to debate which term best preserved accuracy without confusing the readers. So let's start by discussing our general strategy for terminology choices. Ellie, can you start?
Yeah, sure. So, generate strategy for terminology. My approach was to first check if there is a recognized Malay equivalent used in official accounting or financial guidelines. If there was, I stuck with it. For new or ambiguous term, I looked at context to decide whether a literal translation or descriptive phrasing could work best.
I agree with Alec's strategy. So, and I did something similar, but I also considered frequency and consistency. Even if a term had multiple acceptable translations, we had to pick one and use it consistently throughout the text to avoid confusion.
Mm, from a stylistic angle, I also pay attention to readability. Some terms are technically correct but very cumbersome in Malay. In those cases, I suggested slight adjustment without changing meaning, like using kepentingan bukan kawalan instead of a longer descriptive phrases.
Terminology consistency is essential for professional credibility. In accounting, a single misused term can change the perceived meaning of transaction. So that's why I cross-reference every term with Petronas' previous annual reports and Malaysian accounting standard.
Okay, so since Alec and me was the translator for the source, one of the first debates that we had was about acquisition date. In English, it is concise, but in Bahasa Malay, we consider both tarikh perolehan and tarikh pengambil alihan actually give the same meaning. So, why did we settle on tarikh perolehan?
Pemerolehan aligns with professional accounting usage in Malaysia, while pengambil alihan is more general and could imply corporate takeover, which might confuse the reader.
Yes, exactly, Ali. Tarikh pemerolehan preserves the sense of the accounting process rather than just the event of taking control.
And stylistically, it sounds more formal and neutral, which actually suits financial reporting.
I agree, and I also verify it against the Malaysian Financial Reporting Standard, which stands for MFRS. Tarikh pemerolehan appears in official definition, so it was the safest choice.
I see. So now that we all agree to choose the word tarikh pemulihan instead of tarikh pengambil alihan, now let's go into another tricky term, which was non-controlling interest. We debated between kepentingan bukan kawalan and kepentingan minoriti.
Yeah, minority is widely used but can be ambiguous. In some contexts, it refers to shareholders rather than the interest in the group.
Well, I suggested that kepentingan bukan kawalan because it's literal, accurate, and avoids potential misreading.
Stylistically, it also fits the formal Malay tone. Minority might sound conversational in professional report.
Exactly, so consistency was the key here too. Once we agreed on kepentingan bukan kawalan, we apply it throughout the text to maintain clarity.
Right. Thank you, everyone, for the justification. Now, the most debated terms were in the stage acquisition paragraph. Words like remeasurement, gain or loss, and ownership increase. How do we approach these words?
Remeasurement was tricky. I propose penilaian semula, which is commonly used in financial reporting.
Well, for me, gain or loss I recommended as untung atau rugi instead of keuntungan atau kerugian because it is shorter but it's still accurate.
And for increase in ownership interest, we use peningkatan kepentingan pemilikan, which keeps the technical meaning intact while still sounding formal.
So every term was checked was for consistency across the entire text. Any variation could create confusion, so we cross-reference both English and Malay accounting source.
Hmm. After bit it brings up, which is when the literal translation is accurate but sounds unnatural. How do we decide on that?
Well, accuracy always comes first in technical text. If naturalness conflicts with precision, we prioritize precision. And readability can be improved through sentence structure, not term alteration.
Yeah, agreed. Malay readers in finance are used to for more technical terms. To focus in on correct. To focus is on bodoh lagging. Yeah, agreed. Malay readers in finance are used to formal. Agreed. Malay readers in finance are used to formal technical terms. The focus is on meaning, not everyday fluency.
We can also use Malay connectors or clarifiers to smoothen sentences around the terms without compromising the technical accuracy.
So consistency is critical, even if a term sounds slightly formal. Changing it in one place but not another risks misinterpretation.
Hmm. That was a long debate session, so I think it is time to summarize the third part of our discussion. Terminology choices require balancing accuracy, consistency, while multiple options existed for terms, Our strategy was to prioritize technical correctness and cross reference official accounting sources. So, for the next part of our discussion, we will examine collaborative problem solving and negotiation, how we resolve disagreements over structure, terms, and style. Now that we have analyzed sentence structure and terminology, I like to focus on our collaborative process. Translating a financial text isn't just about applying rules, right? It's about negotiating differences in interpretation, style, and terminology. We had several points of disagreement. So let's discuss how we approach them and what strategies help us reach consensus.
So, one major disagreement was whether to split certain long sentences. I initially wanted to break them into shorter sentences for readability, but Mia and Shaira argued for preserving the original structure.
Yes, exactly. While I understood Alex's point about readability, I felt that logical relationships in these sentences were too important to separate them. Hence, when we decided to start discussing the control restructuring rather than splitting it.
Another area of disagreement was terminology. So, for example, non-controlling interest sparked debate. I suggested kepentingan minority at first, but Phila argued that kepentingan bukan kawalan was more precise in the accounting context.
Yes, and I insisted on checking Malaysian financial reporting standards to ensure the term was officially recognized. That settles the debate.
Hmm. So, how do we actually resolve this agreement?
We use three main strategies. First, we use discussion, reference to official sources, and compromise. For sentence splitting, the compromise was restructuring internally without breaking sentences.
For terminology, we rely heavily on references. If a term appeared in MFRS or previous Petronas reports, that became our guiding principle.
We also considered stylistic and readability aspects. Sometimes I suggested minor adjustment in word order or connectors to smooth out the sentences without affecting the accuracy.
And we documented every decision in shared table. That way, everyone could see which term or structure was agreed on, reducing back and forth and potential errors.
Okay, so let's revisit the most complex paragraph, which is the loan controlling interest and stage acquisition. I think this is the part that required the most. Can you?
Yes, we disagreed on where to place clarifying phrases. I initially suggested splitting some clauses, but Mia argued that moving adverbial phrases within the sentence would maintain both clarity and integrity.
Well, yes, exactly. I also propose that using consistent Malay accounting terms like penilaian semula and untung atau rugi to avoid confusion.
From a stylistic perspective, I focus on formal tone. Even a small change like connector choice, dan versus serta, affected the professional feel.
And terminology and sentence flow had to work together. Any adjustment in phrasing required checking that it didn't create ambiguity in accounting meaning.
Hmm. Even simpler sentences had some debate, right? Let's take the acquisition method, which is the business combinations are accounted for using the acquisition method from the acquisition date, which is the date on which control is transferred to the group.
I initially wanted to split it for clarity, but we agreed on using EIA2 to introduce the clarification instead.
Well, this was a good compromise and it keeps the explanatory function intact while improving readability for Malay readers.
It also preserved formal tone, which is important in a financial report.
And it's avoid ambiguity in terms like tarikh pemerolehan, maintaining precision.
Okay. So, what would you guys say are the key lessons from our collaborative problem solving?
Listening to different perspectives and being willing to adjust initial instincts was crucial for me.
For me, using references to official documents definitely helps to resolve disputes objectively rather than subjectively.
Also, compromise doesn't mean reducing accuracy. It often means finding a middle ground that preserves both meaning and readability.
And also, documenting decisions and agreeing on consistent terminologies early on saves time and prevents errors later.
Okay, so now that we have seen that collaboration is essential for complex translations, negotiation, compromise, and reference to official standards ensure accuracy, clarity, and consistency. So for the next part, um, which is the last part of our discussion, we will conclude the discussion with a reflection of the overall success, challenges, and the strategies that help us succeed. So that we have covered sentence structure, terminology, and collaboration. To wrap up our discussion, let's reflect on the overall translation process, which is the challenges we face, the strategies we use, and what we learn as a team.
So one of the biggest challenges was balancing accuracy and readability. Financial texts are inherently complex, and Malay translation often expand phrases. So making sentences even longer is the biggest challenge.
For me, another challenge was terminology consistency because some English accounting terms may have multiple Malay equivalents, and choosing the correct one while maintaining clarity are required of careful research.
Stylistic consistency was also challenging. Maintaining a formal tone without making a sentences awkward required constant attention to the connectors, word order, and clauses structure.
So, finally, ensuring conceptual integrity was critical. Each sentence needed to preserve technical relationships, such as cause, effects, or sequence of accounting treatments, which required repeated referencing with source text and standards.
Okay, now I would like to know which strategies that you guys think help us overcome these challenges.
First, we control restructuring instead of splitting sentences literally. We adjusted word order and used clarifying connectors like yaitu to maintain meaning.
For me, terminology cross-referencing, checking Malaysian financial reporting standards and previous Petronas reports ensured accuracy and consistency.
Third, attention to style and flow. Small adjustment in phrasing and connectors made long sentences readable while preserving formality.
And fourth, documentation and collaboration. Keeping a shared decision long prevented inconsistencies and clarified which term and structures were final.
Okay, now I wanna ask you guys, as a you can say like a new translators, what do you guys think that we learn from this project?
Of course, accuracy must always come first. Then readability is important as well, but it cannot compromise technical precision.
For me, consistency, both in terminology and style, is essential because even small variation can confuse readers or misrepresent accounting concepts.
Next, understanding genre conventions matters. Long, complex sentences are normal in financial text, so our job is to make them clear, not short.
And last but not least, collaboration and research are key. Consulting official standards and working as a team ensures professional and reliable translation.
All right. Thank you everyone for sharing your insights, having a debate session with each other so that we can exchange opinion and suggestion. So to conclude all of our discussion for today, by translating Petronas significant accounting policies, was quite challenging, but it is rewarding for all of us. We learn how to balance technical accuracy, clarity, and formal, and also how to negotiate terminology choices, and last but not least, how to work effectively. This translating process shows that professional translation is not just about language, it is about critical thinking, problem solving, and careful attention to general convention. So, again, thank you all for sharing your insight. So, this will be the end of our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.